It's the new year 2021 and the LeBron line just keeps on churning out the classic content. And this time it's the LeBron 18 grade school, but because it's the sneaker that's directed straight at school age children, I've got to ask the question, where are we right now with the pandemic around the world? Where's this shoe going to fit in with that? If people, as where I'm sitting, I've seen a lot of places where the numbers are starting to rise again pretty rapidly, and that means people are calling out for schools and universities to close. And if that happens, what's going to happen to this shoe? Is it still going to have a bit of push behind it, or are people going to be like, my kid's not going back to school for a couple of months yet, so I'm not going to be digging into my pocket and coughing up some money for these guys? So is it a well-timed shoe? Does it really matter? Does that really matter when it comes to something like a LeBron 18, which really isn't about going to school? It's more about just being cool wherever you are. Or is that going to be a major player in whether parents dig into their pockets and get the money out and actually go ahead and pass it over and get this shoe? And also, looking at this, you're probably thinking, man, that's a pink looking shoe. Why is it called multicolor? But it really is truly multicolor. It's one of those shoes where you dig deeper and you look really closely at it and you find some more colors and some more interesting hits going on in there. So today we'll look at that alongside that question about whether or not schools are going back, and that will affect this shoe, and whether this truly is a multicolor. So without further ado, let's get into this and have a look at the upcoming release of the Nike Lebron 18 multicolor for grade school. This is a Tokyo Butter 23 Sneaker channel. Tokyo Butter 23 Sneaker channel. This毎日アップするので毎日見てください. And every single day from Tokyo, Japan, I bring you content about upcoming sneaker releases, sneaker news, and sneaker reviews. And this right here is the Harlem Fashion Row Lebron 17, which I just cannot help but talk about when I talk about LeBron shoes. That to me is what reached it's a high point in the LeBron line. The 17s I thought was a beautiful shoe, absolutely unique, absolutely iconic. And then when the 18s came out, I was kind of critical of where they'd gone with the line. But then again, when you've got to something so iconic as the 17s, it's pretty hard to follow that. But what they did do is they followed that with steps forward in technology. So maybe to look at it isn't as pretty as the LeBron 17s, but the LeBron 18 still does a lot more in terms of stability, a lot more in terms of function when it comes to basketball. And it also gives a lot more chance to the designers to split the shoe in half and do two different things with the front half and the back half, which you couldn't really do with the LeBron 17s. And they've very much done that today. They split the shoe in half, and it's almost like two completely different stories crammed together on the shoe. And we'll take a look at that right now as we look in detail at this multicolor shoe. So first things first, let's go real deep close in on the toe on these guys, because I want to look at two particular things. One is, I don't know, purples from violets, from indigos, from any of those kind of colors. It's just not my thing. But what I do know is on this shoe, there's a real kind of spectrum that goes from deep, dark kind of purples all the way to lighter, closer to pink colours. And I don't know what the right names for them are, but I can point them out to you. And they start with that little toe swoosh here that you'll be looking at that comes as standard on all LeBron 18s. And in the case of these guys, it's the deepest of those purples hues that you get right there. And it's in contrast to the rest of the upper, which at first look is pink, but hopefully what you're seeing on the green screen right here behind me is that it's a bit more than just pink going on there. And that's one of the telltale sort of main features, the specific signs of the LeBron 18s, is that upper Flyknit material has a whole lot more going on in it. And when you're looking from afar, it looks like one solid color, but when you close in on it and look a bit closer, you see more colors going on in there, and that's where the multicolor story of this shoe comes in. So focusing on that and that really clean pink feel, and it's the other extreme of the swoosh, the deeper, darker swoosh at the front, and then the lighter pink feel to the upper and the Flyknit material on the upper. But then if we go down to the midsole, right in the center of it, at the midfoot point, you've got a color in the strip there that is halfway between that deep purple of the swoosh and the light pink of the upper. And again, if I knew my colors, if I could tell this is mauve or indigo or eggplant or something like that, it might help. But you can look at it anyway and see for yourself that strip that I'm talking about. So you've got a lot of multicolor going on that front half of the shoe. Now we'll get up to the tongues in a minute and the medial side in a minute, but I want to stay on this lateral side because it's easy to go backwards and look at the second half of the shoe and look at how different that is from the front half. One of the things I really appreciated about I think it was the Lakers shoe, was that little strip that I was talking about at the front there, that it was balanced out in the back half of the shoe, and there was a really cool play on the colours in the front half of the shoe. The back half of the shoe is totally not happening on this shoe. The back half of the shoe is like a completely different shoe. First and foremost, the top part is very black, but it's got this feel about it, this weathered, watered feel about it. Now, I thought that was just some cameraman being cool and sort of making it, look, here's a bit of water effect on it. But then I saw it in many, many different pictures in many different places, and I realized that's actually the design on the black part of the shoe. It isn't just some photographer going for a concept or a cool looking picture. It's actually designed that way. But it is still very solid black, which is in contrast to the front half of the shoe with lots of different colors going on. But then when you drop down from that little panel of grey, which I think is where you see the writing that says made in, it's not made in, isn't it? It's from the city of Akron, isn't it? That it says in that little grey panel on there. And again, contrast that grey panel with that purple panel from the front half of the shoe. And then down into the air unit, and the air unit is kind of reds and a deep sort of burnt orange feel about it. So very different colours from the front half and the back half of the shoe, and they're in very deep contrast to each other, which is seen very easily on the outsole. If you go down there and see, you've got some translucence going on the outsole, but you've got that two-tone effect with the orange in one half and then the lighter colours in the other half, so it repeats the motif from above straight forward down below. So there's a real difference, a real half and half shoe going on here, a real kind of different sort of perspective from that first sort of purpley and pinky front half of the shoe to get into the back with the more solid blacks and oranges and reds. But then flipping it around to the medial side, before we go and take a look at the tongues, we look at that really electric blue swoosh on the medial side again, which is in contrast to anything that's been going on, whether it's those purplies of the front half of the shoe or the blacks and the reds of the back half of the shoe. Now we've got an electric blue swoosh in there as well, but it really works, really brings it out, and I kind of dig it when LeBron brings out pink and blue on the same shoe. It's like one thing I'm critical of is shoes that are made for women only or men only. I think shoes should be for anyone who wants to wear them. So having pink and blue on the same shoe, I think is a big deal because it makes it unisex, which is something I truly believe in. But then the last place to really look at on these guys is the tongue. The 3 air units that run up the center of the tongue on LeBron 18s. You can see it's a white tongue, very simple tongue design, but that's offset by those 3 air units that are very busy, very colourful, and match the narrative of the shoe very, very much. So coming back out, looking at the whole shoe, very cool, very nice looking shoe. I'm not entirely sure if it's going to go anywhere. Like I said at the top of this video, I'm worried about lockdowns looming and whether or not schools are going to be going back, and if schools don't go back after the winter break, then our parents are going to be digging into their pockets and spending money on shoes for school when schools aren't happening. Now here in Japan, let me see, in Tokyo, which is the biggest metropolis in the world, it's like 38 million people living in like Tokyo and the surrounding areas in Tokyo. The numbers have gradually been creeping up, and just recently we passed 1,000 cases a day for the very first time, which doesn't sound like much compared to other countries where you've seen tens of thousands of cases a day, but the rate of increase is quite substantial, and it's quite stark and quite worrying, to be honest. And that's reflected nationwide in Japan, and the numbers up into the 3, now closing in on 4,000 cases a day, which again for us here is a lot. I know a lot of other countries 50, 60,000 cases a day, so a different kettle of fish. But they've started talking again now about closing schools and lockdowns and states of emergency and stuff like that. Tokyo itself is like a state, if you like, and around it has other states, especially north is Saitama, east is Chiba, and southwest is Kanagawa. And those 4 states, Tokyo itself and Chiba, Saitama and Kanagawa, just today their governors were on TV saying they're pressuring the federal government to declare a state of emergency, and with that would come things like school closures and things like that. So it's very top of my mind. I'm very worried about that as being a thing right now here in Japan. I'm seeing it in other places as well. The UK numbers are very high. They're talking about schools not going back, and maybe in certain parts of the States as well. So a grade school shoe such as this coming out at this particular time, it might just be, unfortunately for the LeBron line, that should happen, that schools are shutting down when he's trying to push a shoe. But having said that, he's the king, and he just won a ring a couple of months ago, so maybe that's enough to keep the sales going on his shoes. For now though, time for me to sign off. Just thank you guys for checking out the content. Hopefully you got an insight into this shoe and its place in sneakers right now, and the current sort of situation in the world. But for now, it's just time for me to sign off. Thank you guys for checking out the content, and I'll just say the thing that I say at the end of every single video, which I'll remind you that I do this every single day, and that means you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.